Well, hello and welcome back to Daily Bible with Chris. This is our continuation, our part two to our previous daily Bible reading where we began the book of Song of Songs or Song of Solomon, however your Bible may refer to it. A very short book, only 8 chapters. And so we read the first 4 chapters in this book. And so as I always say with this, if you've not already read those chapters or watched that daily Bible reading video, I would encourage you to do that first and then come back here for us to break out some ideas and some commentary on the reading. And also, again, if you've not already subscribed to the channel, would you hit that subscribe button? I do appreciate that. Those of you that have recently subscribed, thank you so much. And I would love to hear from you. Drop a comment in the comment section and give the video a big thumbs up. Thank you so very much. Well, let's dive right into this very sometimes often ignored book of the Bible, primarily because of the sensual nature, the romantic nature of this book. This book is a romantic poem. Certainly there are some analogies and metaphors that can be a spiritual application that can be made. Certainly there's the idea of this happening in the presence of God. But this is not your typical book. It's not your typical book of the Bible where there's deep spiritual principles and such being taught or clearly explained. We can certainly draw out from this book some information. And of course, this is written by Solomon. It's basically a song written by Solomon. And we know that from the description in 1 Kings about Solomon, he's credited with writing over 3,000 proverbs and over 1,000 songs. And of all of the songs that Solomon writes, this is the one that he, under the inspiration of God, writes as the Song of Songs. It tells us this right at the beginning of the book in chapter 1. And so, but again, this is a passage in a scripture that is often ignored. I think sometimes pastors don't know how to handle it. I don't know how well I'm going to handle explaining this because it can be kind of awkward to discuss, but it shouldn't be because it's part of the Bible. We should have at least a working understanding and knowledge of it. We shouldn't put any more into it than is there, or take away any more than what is there, and try to give a clear understanding that this is a description of good, godly, romantic love as God intended between a man and a woman who are together, they're dating, they're courting, and then eventually come together as husband and wife. And so, but of course, the sad idea of this, if you know the story of Solomon sadly is not going to be satisfied with just one marital relationship. And so this person that he's describing here may have been his first wife. It seems to be that way, the wife of his youth. That in the book of Ecclesiastes, the writer there tells us to remember our Creator in the days of our youth, and during that time enjoy the wife of our youth. And so it could be that he's referencing this individual who sadly he seems to enjoy. It's a beautiful picture. But unlike many fairy tales where it's they happily live ever after, we know the rest of the story about Solomon, that Solomon allows himself eventually to get pulled away by other women and foreign women. They turn his heart to other gods, and it causes him not to finish his life as well as it should have finished based on everything that God blessed him with and the advantages that he had in life. But at least for a period of time, he enjoys a relationship with a woman as it was intended by God. And it's a beautiful thing. And from that, we can learn and apply, whether you're watching this and you're married, or whether you're watching this and you've never been married, or maybe you're watching this and you've been married and things didn't happen the way they should have, and you're divorced and you're looking at things. All of these ideas we can still learn from and glean from as well. So, and it's interesting, this is referred to as the Song of Songs in the book of the Bible. Not all the praise psalms, not even the great book, the song in Revelation is given this title of Song of Songs. This is, at least in the author's opinion, is the song of all songs. And so I think it gives a little idea of the importance that Solomon's placing in this idea of romantic and eventual marital relationship together. So it tells right in the first verse, this is the Song of Songs, which is Solomon's. That's why it's referred to, the book is often referred to as either the Song of Solomon or the Song of Songs. And as we mentioned when we were doing the reading, that there's going to be several different characters. There is the woman, the maiden in this story, and of course the man is going to speak, and the man, the beloved, as he's referred to as well by the woman. This is Solomon that's being described, and then we have a chorus of women, sometimes referred to as the daughters of Jerusalem, the daughters of Zion. They're kind of like, so it's almost like this is written a bit like a musical opera. It's being sung and spoken and performed. And we even have like this choir. We have a narrator. We even have, I think in some places, God even himself is speaking. And so we're going to see different characters, and I'll try to break it out who is speaking as we best can understand it. And so it's interesting, we do equate love sometimes, especially in our modern vernacular, with music, right? How often you see the advertisements, not so much today, but it used to be the greatest love songs of all time on 2 CDs, 1999, Time Life music, and there's always this idea of what's the greatest love song ever written? Is it the theme to Love Story? Is it, I'm an Elvis guy, so is it Can't Help Falling in Love, or Love Me Tender, or The Unchained Melody, or, whatever. And then, of course, there's modern love songs as well. And so we kind of all have that song, right? Well, this is the song of this couple's love. And so as we begin in chapter 1, we have the woman speaking, and she's having a bit of a daydream. Obviously, it's the idea that they have, they know each other, they've met each other. She's referred to kind of as this young woman, young maiden, and he is, of course, he's referred to in some places as Solomon. She refers to him as her beloved. He's also going to be compared to a shepherd, which is interesting. But she says in verse 2, oh, that he would kiss me with the kisses of his mouth. So not just one pleasant greeting kiss, like pleasurable kissing of the mouth, for your caresses are more delightful than wine. She gets more pleasure out of her. And again, this is the idea. She's thinking about this. She's pondering, oh, that he would kiss me. And notice it's, oh, that I could kiss him. Notice that she's putting it on him. Oh, that he would come and kiss me, and not just kiss me, but multiple kisses on the mouth, being very specific. That's a very intimate act, obviously, and that his caresses, so that he would caress me and hold me and take me into his arms and kiss me, and that they are more delightful than wine, as wine can make you feel good, right? You start to get that feeling from alcohol of everything's great and feeling good. His caresses, his kisses are better and sweeter than wine. And we even see that sometimes referenced in modern songs as well. The fragrance of your perfume is intoxicating. Your name is perfume poured out. So not only does apparently he grooms himself very well. He takes care of it. He doesn't stink. Like, he's not coming in from the fields, hey baby, and trying to get his sweaty grubs hands on her. He takes care that when he's with her, he's smelling. Probably got some type of anointed oil or perfume on his clothing and such. He's smelling well, right? No woman likes to smell a stinky man, and so that's why we should, guys, when we're going out on a date, or we're seeing the woman that we love, or we're coming, whatever, take a shower, right? Do what you need to do to smell your best. There's something about that. But even greater than the actual fragrance that's on his body, his name is like perfume poured out. His character, it's like ointment. It's like this special perfume. So in other words, his name, his character is known in the community. And it says here, no wonder young women adore you. The other young women, the other young virgins is another way it can be described there. The other prospective women there know who he is, and they adore him. He's honored, not just because he's a good-looking guy, as we're going to see. She's going to describe him as good-looking and handsome, and that he smells good, but his character causes those around him to adore him, and the women to sing his praises, right? And that's always a good idea, that when his name is spoken, like if you're looking at a prospective husband, ladies, when his name is mentioned, maybe to your friends or to your family, do they go, yes? Or do they go, is he a stench to them? Or is his name, his character in the community, something that people look at? If it's a stench, that should be a warning flag to you. Better be careful there. Some ladies will say, well, I know he's rough around the edges, but I can fix him. No, generally speaking, you're not going to fix anything there. The only one who can fix things like that is the Lord himself. But better, so in other words, strive after someone. It doesn't hurt that they're attracted. You should be attracted to them, but more so their name, their character in the community should be attractive. How they treat their family, how they treat others, how they work, how they take care of themselves. All of these things are important. And of course, how they worship the Lord. If you're a Christian lady, you shouldn't be dating and intermarrying with an unsaved person. We're not to be unequally yoked. Finding someone who, if you're a Christian, finding someone who loves the Lord and is a Christian as well. And so this is a good, important thing not to be skipped by. What's his name? What's his character like? is what do people think of him? And then take me with you. Let's hurry. Oh, that the king would bring me to his chambers. Now again, this is again this dream that we could be together in marriage, and he would take me potentially into his bedchamber. It could also be just taking into his house there to be with him. All these things. So she's anticipating, oh, that the day was here that we were together. That's how much in love she is with him. And then we see the young women kind of responding, we will rejoice and be glad with you. We will celebrate your caresses more than wine. They're just kind of echoing again that. And then she continues, and she's speaking to the young women. It is only right that they adore you. It is only right that she's speaking about the man, that they adore you. And then she directs to the women. She turns to them and she says, daughters of Jerusalem, I am dark like the tents of Kedar, yet lovely like the curtains of Solomon. Okay, so she's a little bit self-conscious. She's talking about her skin being dark. This would have been the idea. She more than likely is a person working outside. She's working. We're going to see why. She's working in the vineyards of her family. And for that reason, instead of having fair, light skin, which would have been preferred, she has dark skin, and she's worried that makes her ugly. That makes her not presentable to a man like Solomon. So she's like, I'm dark. Again, she's dark because of the fact that she's been outside. Don't stare at me because I'm dark, for the sun has gazed on me. I'm suntan. Again, today sometimes we'll look at someone that's suntan. That's preferred. We go out to, lay by the pool or in the beach out under the sun to get a tan because it's seemingly attractive, but not so back then. Fair skin, milky white skin, that was preferred over dark sunburned skin, because that seemed to show a person who had to go out and work in the fields to make a living for themselves. And so, but she's going to describe that my family didn't really help me. My mother's sons, my brothers, were angry with me, and they made me take care of their vineyards. I had to go out and work for them. I haven't even been able to take care of my own vineyard, part of my inheritance. I'm having to take care of them, and because of that reason, my skin is sunburnt, and so she's a little bit self-conscious of that, and often that can happen. We get a little self-conscious about ourselves. And then she's talking, tell me whom I love, where do you pasture your sheep? She's comparing him to a shepherd, and she wants to know where this shepherd is keeping his sheep, because she wants to go where he is. She wants to be with him. And she's like, so tell me where you're working so I can go and be with you. She doesn't want to be separated. That idea that when we have to be separated, they say separation makes the hearts grow fonder. Maybe that's the case. But how often we just want to spend, when you're really in love with someone, you really want to be with them all the time. Even sometimes, maybe if I could just go to work with you, I want to be with you all the time. I want to share life. That's the idea here. So where do you pasture your sheep? Where do you let them rest at noon? Why should I be like one who veils herself beside the flocks of your companions? She's like, I want to be with you. And notice this comparison. We have to understand the description of the time. Today, we think of a person behind a veil that's kind of tied in with marriage. Back then, only a person who was a prostitute, generally speaking, would hide themselves behind a veil. A woman who was wearing a veils and covering herself and such, and would go out, and the idea is she's out sitting by the sheep near her beloved's companions, and basically this person's advertising, I'm available, guys. I'm available. And she's like, I'm not like them. I don't put on veils. I keep myself in a way. I'm pure. I'm not a prostitute. That's the idea here. Like one who's just waiting for one of the guys to give her a little attention and probably a little money to have a sexual act consummated there. And so she says, I'm like the curtains of Solomon. I'm this, but I'm dark, but I want to be with you. I love you. I want you to be with me. And now we see the man, the beloved, responds back. If you do not know, most beautiful of women follow the tracks of the goat and pasture your young goats near the shepherd's tents. In other words, notice he calls her the most beautiful of women. He sidestepped her whole insecurity about being dark. You're the most beautiful of women in my eyes. Follow where my flock has been and you will find me. Bring your goats to me. And he says, I compare you, my darling, to a mare among Pharaoh's chariots. Now we look at that, a mare, a filly, a female horse. We go, wow, that's a weird description there. But you have to also understand the context there. This idea of Pharaoh's chariots would have been pulled by stallions, right? The strongest, most virile stallions are pulling Pharaoh's chariots. And notice he's saying, you're like a mare. You're like a beautiful filly amongst the stallions. And in other words, you're making just as a mare, a filly will make the stallions wild with passion, wild with, procreative nature. You're the same way. You stir up that, just as that happens to a stallion, you stir that up within me. You make me feel like a wild stallion next to a available mare. And then he describes your cheeks are like jewelry, your neck like a necklace. We will make gold jewelry for you accented with silver. So he's called her beautiful. He calls her his darling. And then he begins to describe her beauty. Your cheeks, are like jewelry. Your neck's like a necklace. And then the woman responds, while the king is on his couch, my perfume releases its fragrance. The one I love is a sachet of myrrh to me. In other words, she's got this picture of him on his couch there, and his perfume releases its fragrance. And then the one she loves is like a sachet of myrrh to me. It's like myrrh, very expensive. We know that's one of the gifts that wise men brought to Jesus' family when he was birthed: frankincense, gold, and myrrh, right? It's a beautiful, expensive. And he's like, you're like that. You're like a sachet. You're like a little collection of that perfume around me, spending the night between my breasts. In other words, keeping the thought of you there on your couch. The thought, again, she's envisioning him and seeing him in her mind. She keeps him close, right? The breast right here in the chest. It's like perfume in my innermost being. That's how sweet you are to me. And I keep you right here where I can keep you close. How often we talk about keeping in the bosom or keeping someone close, or our heart. We feel like falling in love and such. The one I love is a cluster of henna blossoms to me in the vineyards of En-Gedi. So she's describing his fragrance and his beauty and all of these things. And then he responds, how beautiful you are, my darling. So it's like you said one thing, now I've said about you, and now she returns the compliment to him, and now he's back, how beautiful you are, my darling, how very beautiful. Anytime you see a double meaning, a double emphasis there, so in other words, he's saying you're beautiful, beautiful, like you're not just beautiful, like you're really beautiful, you're stunning, you're gorgeous, you are the most beautiful thing, your eyes are like doves, right? Like dove. Is there anything more precious and pure than a dove, right? When Jesus is baptized, a dove descends on, from heaven as a picture of God's approval on him. But there's something, a symbol of peace, of purity is a dove. And he's saying your eyes are as tender. They're like two doves, right? And then she responds and says, how handsome you are, my love. So we're established. She's beautiful. The Shulamite woman, she's beautiful. And he is handsome. How delightful. Our bed is verdant. The beams of our houses are cedars, and our rafters are cypresses. Again, just so you're understanding, this is still a courtship. This is not the idea that they've done anything in the bed together. She's longing for that day one day that they're going to be in the cedars, the house of cedars. The rafters are cypresses. It's like almost like nature. It's like just as anywhere we are together, it's like this beautiful picture of the cedar trees and the cypress trees, and this idea of almost like picnicking together there. And then chapter 2 begins with this description that she's talking. It continues. She's still talking. I am a wildflower of Sharon, a lily of the valleys. Now, sometimes, because some biblical teachers in the past who had a difficult time with the romantic sensuality of this book would often say it's an allegory, that the woman is the church and the beloved is the Lord, because of course Jesus is referred to as the beloved son. He's the beloved and it's the bride, and certainly you can, do some descriptions there. And oftentimes this idea of the rose of Sharon, or the wildflower of Sharon here, or the lily of the valley, is often referred to Jesus. It's a description. You'll even see it in some old hymns. They'll say, he's the lily of the valley, the bright and morning star, the fairest of 10,000 to my soul, right? There's an old song that says that. But that's not really accurate. That's not really true, because the woman here, the young maiden, she's the rose or the wildflower of Sharon. She's the lily of the valley. And just so you understand this too, and that this translation I'm using just says it's not like a rose like we think of. The rose of Sharon was a pretty common wildflower type, just a common flower. There's nothing special to it. It's not like a bright red rose. The lily of the valley, again, is a very common wildflower. It's not like what we think of, like an Easter lily with this beauty and what. And in other words, she's saying I'm fair. I don't see myself as beautiful as you do. There is beauty to me, but I don't see me as anything special. And then he's going to respond back to her, verse 2. Like a lily among thorns, so is my darling among the young women. In other words, all the other, compared to you, my darling, all the other flowers are like prickly thorns. They're just dried up, prickly thorns. You stand out to me. You are not common like all the other wild flowers. You are special. And then verse 3, like an apricot tree among the trees of the forest. Some translations will say apple. This says an apricot tree here. It's apricot or apple, some type of a fruit, like a fruit tree among the trees of the forest. So is my love among the young men. I delight to sit in his shade, and his fruit is sweet to my taste. In other words, she loves being with him, and that he stands above other men, just like a fruit tree that brings life and beauty and even sustenance. So is he to me. His fruit is sweet to my taste. He brought me to his banquet hall, and he looked on me with love. Some translations say his banner over me is love. And that description there, banner, seems kind of weird, but it's like a kingly banner, a standard. In other words, he brings, metaphorically speaking, because again, they have not come together yet, but she's saying she's taken me into this banqueting hall, into this private room, is the idea. He's going to take me into this private, because the banqueting room would have been maybe where the wine was kept and such, kind of like a wine cellar type of idea. It's a banqueting hall, or where that would have been done. And in other words, he flew a banner of his love over me, is the idea here. In other words, he staked his claim. She is mine. I am in love with her. She is mine, and I am his. And so just as a king's standard, he claims, he's saying, he's lifting up his banner for her, that she is the one for him. And then we have this idea, sustain me with raisins. Some say with raisin cakes, refresh me with apricots. In other words, give me some of that fruit of your love. Why? Because I'm lovesick. And any of us who've ever experienced the idea of love, there is a scientific whole thing about when you fall in love with somebody, when you become attracted to someone, there's that idea, I can't sleep and I can't eat. And these kinds of things, that idea of feeling lovesick, and it'll last for a period of time. Now, eventually, that kind of will satiate for a while, but then it can come back depending on in back and forth and such. But initially, there's just something about it. We just feel like, and so she's saying, with your love, sustain me. I haven't even been able to eat. I need the fruit of your love. Sustain me. I'm lovesick. I'm infatuated with him. And then she's again describing this vision, this dream here. May his left hand be under my head, his right arm embrace me. Notice she wants him to take the lead. She's not taking the lead in this. She wants him to take the lead, to take her in his arms and to hold her and to caress her. And then she makes this statement to the young women of Jerusalem. I charge you by the gazelles and the wild does of the field. Really don't know what that means. It's some type of a vow, some type of a statement, there's not really a good explanation for that, but it's some kind of statement that was probably common at that point. Don't stir up or awaken love until the appropriate time. This could have a couple different meanings. It could be she's dreaming. More than likely, this is some kind of she's dreaming, daydreaming, sleeping, dreaming about her beloved and the day when she'll be together. And so she's saying, don't let me wake from this dream. It's beautiful. It could also be the idea that she doesn't want to rush things. She doesn't want the idea of lovemaking to happen before it's supposed to happen. And so there's an appropriate time for that. Don't let things get stirred up. Don't let things move along too quick, because my passions are running hot here, but don't let me move too quick until the appropriate time. And she's still talking. And just so you know, ladies, the woman in this story speaks twice as much as the man does. And so every woman says, yeah, I can understand that. And the man goes, yep, that sounds about right. And then she's like talking. She's listening. She can hear her love is approaching. Look, here he comes. She describes him leaping over the mountains, bounding over the hills. I mean, here he comes. I mean, the mountains is like Superman, able to leap tall buildings in a single bound, right? Here he comes over the mountains, over the hills. My love is like a gazelle or a young stag. He's, a young deer, he's full of energy and such. See, he is standing behind our wall, gazing through the windows, peering through the lattice. We get almost like a Romeo and Juliet here, but he's there. He's on the other side of that wall. He's looking. He's peering. My love calls to me. He's calling to me from wherever he is. He's coming to me. I hear him coming, and he's speaking to her, whether physically or speaking to her in this daydream type idea. Arise, my darling. Come away, my beautiful one. For now the winter is past, the rain is ended and gone away. And so it's like it's the spring of our love. He's describing the blossoms, and they're singing, and the turtle doves, and the fig tree is opening. Arise, my dove. Arise, my darling, come away with me, my beautiful one. It's the season for their love. It's the time for them to come together. The winter is over, the time of things being dead. Everything's coming alive, and it's this beautiful picture of everything's coming alive in their love, everything around. My dove, and he's describing to her that everything he's seeing around him, all the blossoms, all these things remind him of his love for her. He sees her everywhere in the cliff. I see your face. I hear your voice. Your voice is sweet. Your face is lovely. Everywhere you ever had that idea that just everywhere you look, something reminds you of the person you're in love with? That's kind of the idea. So not only is she lovesick, he's smitten as well. And then we see this idea, catch the foxes for us, the little foxes that ruin the vineyards, for our vineyards are in bloom. And so again, the love is blooming and such, but there's a kind of a warning to keep those little things away that can damage what's going on in their relationships. It's the little foxes that spoil the vines. It's the little things. And so he said, let's catch those foxes. Let's get those out of here. We don't want them ruining this vineyard, this blooming of our love. And then she speaks again, my love is mine and I am his. He feeds among the lilies. In other words, I am his and he is mine. Until the day breaks and the shadow flees, turn around, my love, and be like a gazelle or a young stag on the divided mountains. And so very descriptive of what she's wanting to see, that when they come together in marriage together, that he will come and be with her as a young stag on the divided mountains. The idea, this could be a very visual description of her breasts and such. But bottom line, she wants to be his and for him to be hers. That's her ultimate desire. And then again, chapter 3 starts with kind of this continuation of her description, this idea and we kind of see here we're turning to the point of the marriage starting to happen. We've had the courtship and things that are happening, and now in chapter 3, she's in her bed at night. I think she's dreaming. She's thinking, I sought the one I love. I sought him but couldn't find him. She's like, I'm going to go find him. I go seeking for him. No one knows where he's been. Have you seen the one? I had just passed him when I found the one I love. I held on to him and would not let him go until I brought him to my mother's house. Which sounds kind of weird. Why are you taking? It's this idea in this dream of she finds him and she's going to take him, and the idea that eventually their love is so pure that one day when they come together, that their love will be so pure, nothing to be hidden, that they could literally go into her mother's house and have their relationship there, even in their mother's house, and there wouldn't be nothing objectionable to you. But she's saying, to the chamber of the one who can see me, I'll take him home to mom. We'll go even into my mother's house. That's the idea eventually for this thing. And then again, young women, we see the same charge. Don't stir up love. The idea again, don't awaken me from this beautiful dream I have of being with my beloved who I found, who I'm taking home to my mother's house to be together. And the same idea to not go too fast in this situation. And then we have a narrator describing in verse 6, who is this coming up from the wilderness like columns of smoke? So we see this picture of a caravan coming. This caravan is coming, and we see the smoke is the idea, probably the dust going up from all the people that are coming, but their fragrance, there's perfume, it's beauty. Look at Solomon's bed surrounded by 60 warriors from the mighty men of Israel. Now it says Solomon's bed, but let's get the idea. It's not Solomon on the bed. Would have been the idea of like a royal litter that is being sent to get, it's time for the marriage. It's time to go to the wedding. And so he is sending his marriage, or sending one of his litters with his mighty men, 60 mighty soldiers around it, to go pick up the woman, the young maiden, the Shulamite woman. He's going to get her. And notice he sends his best men to protect her. So it's almost like today, a guy sending a limo to pick up his woman, right? To pick up the love of his life. He's sending a limousine, the very best. And not only that, he's putting his mighty men around her. So he's not only sending her the best, giving her the best, but also the idea that he's protecting her too. I'm sending these men to protect you, to bring you safely to the wedding that's getting ready to happen. And so we have this idea he's doing that. But then King Solomon, verse 9, has his own carriage for himself made of wood from Lebanon. He made it, and then we have a description of his. So it's not only her royal litter, it's his royal litter as well. And we get this idea that they are together. He sent for her. He's collected her. And there's this long procession that's going, Solomon and his beloved, to the place where Solomon and his the young woman are going to the marriage. And there's all this, go out, young women of Zion, gaze at King Solomon, wearing the crown his mother placed on him on the day of his wedding. Now, this is more than likely not the actual crown of kingship that was placed on his head by the high priest, obviously, earlier on. But it was a tradition back then that when they came together, there would be like these marriage crowns put on the heads of the bride and the groom, as they were treated as if they were royalty there on the day of their wedding. And so it's more than likely this marriage crown is being put on Solomon's head, signifying that he's the bride, the groom, the bride, that they're coming together for wedding, and they are rejoicing. And now they've been longing for it. They've been describing this time when they're going to come together, and they're longing for it, and all these things. And now the wedding happens on the day of his wedding, the day of his heart's rejoicing. So we have this beautiful procession. They've come together, and between chapter 3 and the beginning of chapter 4, the marriage has happened. They've had the marriage ceremony, the marriage feast, all these things happen. And then we go to chapter 4. Okay. So we get some little bit of a time jump here. They don't go into description of the actual marriage ceremony. We have the courtship and all the longing of their courtship together. The day of their wedding has arrived. There's all this beauty and splendor and power and majesty, and they've come together to each other. And then we get to chapter 4, and this is a description of the marriage night, the wedding night. And notice it's the man speaking, and the man speaks for 15 of the 16 verses here. So again, he's taking the leadership role here. And so it begins with this description. So again, we're kind of taken into the boudoir, the bedroom here of these two. And notice he speaks to her. How beautiful you are, my darling. How very beautiful. There again, we have that double beautiful. How stunning you are. How amazingly attractive you are. How wonderful you are. Behind your veil, your eyes are doves. Now she has got the wedding veil at this point. This is not anything else, but your eyes are doves. He's describing her eyes again. He begins to describe her. He's speaking to her. So notice this, before his hand touches her, he's trying to reach her with his words. Rather than just, hey, we're here, and slam the door and let's get to it. He's taking time to speak to her, to talk to her, to be tender to her, to love her and show affection, which is a biblical principle, to show affection. We're to show affection to our wives. The Apostle Paul is clear about that in the book of Ephesians, talk about the affection we're to have for our wives, right? And so he begins to describe her. Her eyes are like doves. Your hair is like a flock of goats streaming down Mount Gilead. Now we look at that. But a lot of the goats back then would have been black, probably dark. Notice she already described her appearance being dark. More than likely, she had very dark hair as well. And so this could be the idea of the dark black goats on the hill, kind of as they're coming down the mountain. Her hair is wavy, long hair, and long hair was seen as a sign of beauty for the young woman there. And so this could be very much a description of long, dark, black hair. So your hair is like, your teeth are like a flock of newly shorn sheep. They're like, they're white. They're beautiful. They're the same, coming up from washing. They're clean. So in other words, her teeth are clean, and none has lost. They are each one bearing twins, and none has lost its young. In other words, her teeth are equal. They all look the same. They're clean. They're fresh. And guess what? She has them all. She's not missing any teeth here. She doesn't have. So the idea, she has all of her teeth. She's not a snaggletooth, right? Your lips are like a scarlet cord. Your mouth is lovely. He's described her. So notice he's working his way down. The eyes, the hair, the teeth, now the mouth. He describes it like a scarlet cord. Now, of course, today we think about full lips being a sign of beauty. Back then, it would have been more like thin lips was seen as beautiful. So he's describing it like a scarlet cord. Her mouth is lovely. Behind your veil, your brow is like a slice of pomegranate. This brow could be describing not like brow like we think of, but this is more like the cheek area up to here. It's like the outside of a pomegranate. They're rosy. They're well complected. They're beautiful. So now he's describing her face. Her neck is like the Tower of David. It's just got strength to it with all its layers and the beauty of all these shields of the warriors that are there. Remember, a lot of the shields there would have been probably some type of a brass shield. And such. So there's beauty there. And then he's working his way down. Your breasts are like two fawns, twins of a gazelle. They feed among the lilies. He sees for the first time, she's showing herself to him, her nakedness to him. He sees her breasts for the first time, and he begins to describe them. And again, this is not allegorical. I mean, he's describing her breasts, and that they are the same. They're like two young fawns that would be, as you would treat and the idea too is, as a young baby, young fawn is grown up, you treat it with tenderness. So her breasts should be treated with tenderness and such here. And so, they're there. And then we have this. So he's described. So again, he's just talking to her, right? This is his idea. He's talking to her before any physical actions happen. Notice they haven't kissed. Nothing's happened. And then he describes that his desire is that he wants to be up all night with her, enjoying themselves together. So he says, until daybreak, until the shadows flee, I will make my way to the mountain of myrrh, the hill of frankincense. Again, describing, remember she mentioned that between her breasts, the sachet of myrrh, right? I think he's describing that area there. You are absolutely beautiful, my darling. If she didn't get it the first time, he's saying it again. There is no imperfection in you. He sees nothing. Certainly, if we're all honest, we can look at people and see flaws in them, right? But through the eyes of one who loves someone deep in love, there's this idea, I don't see anything wrong with you. You're completely perfect. You're completely beautiful to me. I don't see any flaws in you. And that's the way we should see our wife, our husband. We should try to see them that way, with the eyes of that young lover who first fell in love with the wife or husband. There's no imperfection in you. He sees her as perfect. And then he says, come away with me. Come away. And he begins to describe this idea of where they're going to go. He says, you've captured my heart, verse 9, you've captured my heart, my sister, my bride. Notice, for the first time, he's referring to her as his bride. She is now his. They've come together in marriage. You've captured my heart. You've enthralled my heart. You've infatuated my heart. You have, in other words, I am yours. You are mine. There's no, you've captured me. I'm no longer free. And as close as a sister to him and his family. She's part of his family. You've captured my heart with one glance of your eyes. All it took was one look. Just one look is all it took, right? As the old song says. With the jewel of your necklace, how delightful your caresses are, my sister, my bride. Your caresses are much better than wine. Remember, when we first read in chapter 1, she described his kisses being better than wine. Now he describes her touch. So they're, again, starting to come together physically. Your touch, your caresses to me are better than wine, and the fragrance of your perfume than any balsam. Your lips drip sweetness like the honeycomb, my bride. Honey and milk are under your tongue. They begin, I believe, at this point they're kissing. This could be a description to some type of what we would call, without being embarrassing, a French kiss here. The idea they're enjoying the mouth, the tongue together and the fragrance of your garments, like the fragrance of Lebanon. She smells all of these things, the garments around the bed, everything smells sweet. And then he says, my sister, my bride. Again, don't get it. He's just saying, as close as a sister would be, you're now that close to me. We're going to become one flesh together, as we're supposed to be in marriage. My bride, you are a locked garden in a sealed spring. This is a clear description of her virginity. She saved herself for him, and he has saved himself for her. So it's a locked up garden. No one has, just like people have a private garden and only the gardener can come into that garden. She has preserved that garden, and she's kept it, locked up for this time where she could give the gift of virginity to her husband and he could give his gift of virginity to her. And there's something to be said for that. That's the way God intends it. Now, again, for those of you out there watch, maybe you've given away your virginity. You've not done the way God. That's okay. If that happens, it's not okay. But you understand what I'm saying. It's not something you should walk around with shame. You confess it to the Lord, and then you make the decision, if you're not in a marital relationship, that from this day forward, that you will keep yourself until the time when you're married, and then give yourself to your husband or your wife at that point. There is something to be said for that, and God can help you in that area, right? But there is something to be treasured for that, and that men can often trick women and such, and take advantage of women for their sexual needs. Whereas women have to really protect and defend their virtue oftentimes. And we as men should protect that as well. Sadly, we live in a culture where that's not praised anymore. It's about body counts. How many people have you slept with? How many relationships can you have? And doing that kind of thing makes you a star on social media and stuff. But I can tell you, that's not the way God intends it. The way God intends it, save yourself for your husband or wife. Or if you've given yourself to someone, then save yourself decide from this day forward, I'm keeping myself for that future husband or wife there. And so he describes her branches your arms are like pomegranates, the choicest fruit, henna with nard, saffron, all these spices and smells and trees, myrrh and aloes, all the best spices. In other words, this idea of coming to you is like walking into the most fragrant smelling garden ever. You are a garden spring, a well of flowing water streaming from Lebanon. I'm coming into your garden. You're opening up your garden to me. We see this in verse 16. She finally speaks. He has spoken to her with his words, and now she's reacted. They begun to touch. They began to move into this idea of coming together for the first time, enjoying marital intimacy for the first time. He's enjoying her caresses, her lips, her kissing and such. And now she's going to speak to him. Awaken, north wind, come, south wind, blow on my garden, spread the fragrance of its spices. In other words, what I have saved for you, the garden of my love, is here for you. Come into my garden. And notice that and then she says, let my love come to his garden. He's given this analogy of a garden, right? That has to be nurtured. And of course, a garden brings life. And we know that the sexual act, of course, can bring fruit and life as well. That's how we have children and such, through the sexual act. So there's that idea of coming into the garden and such. But notice it's always, he described it as her garden. She's now described it as my garden. And then the last line of the chapter, let my love, the man, come to his garden and eat its choicest fruits. Now it's no longer my God. In other words, my body is no longer just my body. It is yours. My sexuality is no longer just mine. It is yours. And that's the way it's supposed to be. The New Testament is clear on this too, that when a husband and wife come together, their body is for their partner. And so we should not withhold ourselves from our partner. We should come together. That way as often as we can, we should come together so that it helps battle against lust and desires outside of the marriage bed. It's a purely undefiled. The marriage bed is undefiled. It's beautiful. That's where the sexual act should take place. But notice she's saying, what I have saved, I've now brought this as a gift, my virginity to you. It is now yours to now basically receive and to take. And I give my love to you as you give your love to me. And it's now my body, my sexuality is now yours, my beloved, my husband. And the same goes for him to her. His sexuality is now hers. And so we have this beautiful picture of them coming together at the end. So we've had kind of like this infatuation, this courtship, this marriage, and now the first marriage night, them spending together. Very beautiful. And guys, we could take a little word from this, that sometimes we just want to get to it, but there's something to be said about talking, doing the things, speaking to the wives, to the ones in our lives like that, speaking to them, doing the things that make them feel attractive, letting them know that they're attractive, that they're the only one for us. There's nothing more I think that a woman wants to know. And again, I'm a man talking here, but to know that there's no one else for you but them. And we do that by our words and by our actions. And so we should do that. And so I know foreplay is kind of the things we do leading up to a sexual time together. That can be done all throughout the day. It could be making breakfast. It could be doing the laundry, washing the dishes, whatever it might be. For ladies, it could be going to a ball game, watching a movie with your husband, going out in the yard and helping to mow the grass or pick up the leaves or whatever. All of these things are these simple acts that we do to give ourselves to the other. And then when it's time, when we want to come together physically, it's a natural overflow of that. And so I remember she said, I want to be yours and you to be mine. And we see at the end of chapter 4, that is the case. When we pick up in our next Bible reading, the rest of the book, we will see the aftermath from 4 to 5 is the aftermath of the act. It's the next day. And we kind of pick up from there. So again, hope that helps give at least a little bit of understanding. I didn't really go into a lot of the spiritual allegory. There's a lot of people who like to, because I really think we should take this for what it is, which is this beautiful romantic description and obviously not everybody can be like this all the time, right? Life gets in the way sometimes, but this should be the ideal we should strive for. Speaking to our husband and wives like this, or our boyfriend, we should speak to them in loving ways. And when we come together as husband and wife, we should express that this way. And so I think we can learn from this as well. So hopefully it's helpful for you and certainly a book we should not ignore. So next time we'll come back, we'll finish out the book reading Song of Solomon, Song of Psalms, chapters 5 through 8. So see you then.